Well, good afternoon, ladies and gents. My name's Tim Elderton. I'm a railway mechanical engineer. I moved to Lithgow in 2009 to set up Lithgow Railway Workshop up at the state mine. It was a good business. We've employed up to 50 local staff. It's been good for the economy. We used to pump in $5 million a year into the local economy. But one of the exciting projects I did was build this solar train. So it all stemmed from a big 5-star resort up in Byron Bay. It's in North Byron Bay, 3 kilometres north of town, and the guests were always complaining it was difficult to get into town because of the traffic jams in Byron Bay, and they were driving around for half an hour trying to find a parking spot, and then there was parking meters. And so the owner of the resort approached me and said, "Tim, we've got a rusty, disused railway line here. It used to be the Moolumbar railway line. It was closed 10 years earlier." Anyway, in 2014, they approached me and said, "Can you supply a train?" I said, "As a matter of fact, we've got one up here in the back of the state mine that's been in storage doing nothing." So we came to an agreement, so we started restoring that train. Now these trains were built by Lithgow Railway Workshops back in the post-war. And they were primarily used for branch lines. And towards the end of their careers in the 80s and 90s, they were mainly relegated around the Newcastle area. This is the old Newcastle railcar workshops. So they were phased out, and a couple of these little 2-car sets were in the old museum up at the state mine. They weren't doing much with them. This is the power car. It's got 2 300 horsepower diesel engines underneath the floor, and the trailer car goes here. So all up, there's seating for about 100 passengers. And so we started restoring the train back in 2014. They needed a lot of work. It was a mixture of paid staff and volunteers. It did have, this was 661, and 761 was its normal trailer car, but it got burnt down in a fire up at the state mine years earlier. So we had to get a replacement trailer car. We found that in someone's backyard, and we brought it to the state mine and we started restoring it. And in 2016, it was fully restored. However, the Byron Bay Railroad weren't quite ready for us. They were battling the bureaucracy, Transport for New South Wales, and red tape, trying to lease the railway line and rebuild a bridge. To cut a long story short, we ran it around here for a year in 2016. We were doing excursion trains to Tarranar Pub and the Orange Picnic races. But then I got a phone call at the end of 2016 saying, "Tim, we're having too many problems with the local greenies in Byron Bay. They don't want to have a dirty diesel train running through their backyard." And there was a big, it was in the press up there, quite severe. And they said, "Look, to shut them up, Tim, can you convert the train to solar power?" I thought, really? And I just did a few calcs on the back of the envelope. I said, "Oh, actually, yeah, we can." And so from that conversation, the R&D, the design, fabrication, installation, transport up there and commissioning took 12 months. And in December 2017, we ran the world's first solar powered train. Only at the time, we didn't know it was the world's first. It wasn't until a few weeks after we were told, "Oh, did you know that?" Anyway, so I'll just go through how we designed it. Basically, this is the transmission frame of one of the engines. And the engine bolts onto this, what was here. And we've just removed the engine and we fabricated this steel box. And in that box, we have the batteries. So that's the battery box. And instead of the transmission here, we've put the gearbox and traction motors. And so there's two engines. I only replaced one with a electric drive unit because it's all flat running in Byron Bay. If they wanted to go up to Bangalore, then we had everything ready to replace both engines because that's pretty steep going up to Bangalore. So we had a great team of boilermakers and welders and fitters put all this together. So the traction motors are in here. Oh, sorry. So the diesels were 300 horsepower, and so we put in two 150 horsepower AC traction motors, and they both drive into this gearbox with one output shaft, which bolts onto the existing drive shaft. So we made the whole unit modular, so all we had to do was remove 3 pins. The whole engine transmission unit came out, and this unit just goes up. We did a changeover in 3 hours. The scary part was I had the news crew there filming it all. And I thought, lucky, I hope I measured twice and cut once, you know. If the pin if the hole was 1 millimetre out, I would have had egg on my face. But it worked perfectly. That's underneath. So back then in 2017, really we only had lithium ion batteries, but today there's all sorts of wonderful battery chemistries, and with the projects I've got on board now, we're using lithium to titanium oxide batteries, which are far more superior than lithium ion. Now, the diesel engines had a integral air compressor, and because we're going to run on electric, we had to put electric air compressors in. So there's 2 of these little 3 horsepower air compressors. They're silent screw compressors. Only need to run one at a time. So when they cut in, you can hardly hear them. So the battery voltage is 400 volt DC, but those compressors are 240 volts AC. So these are the inverters that convert the DC to AC. This is one of the driver's control stands. This side was all original, and just to make it look the part, we made an extension, and that's the electric throttle. That's the diesel throttle, this is the electric throttle. Now for the infrastructure. The train has got 6.5 kilowatts of thin film flexible solar panels. In fact, it was one of the first places in the world. It was all new technology at the time. So that where they could bend to the curvature of the roof, and you can hardly recognise them. 6.5 kilowatts, which gave us an extra 15% endurance charging the batteries. But the main solar panels was the 30 kilowatts on the shed roof where we house the train at night. And we only use 23% of the energy that we generate. The other 77%, on average, we export to the grid. So the train's been running 364 days a year since December 2017. It runs about 60 kilometres a day. I think the first year we carried 100,000 passengers in 2017. We run an hourly shuttle, 6 kilometres round trip into town. Has anyone been for a ride on it yet? No? Okay. It's pretty boring. It doesn't make smoke. It doesn't make any noise. Yeah.
You need to roughen up the rails a bit.
Yeah. That's the resort elements of Byron. The train station's just here. The Byron station is there. There's talk of extending that way a little bit and this way a little bit, but it hasn't happened yet. But it'll probably happen one day. So I did this slideshow for Engineers Australia because in 2018, the Byron Bay Railroad won the Engineers Australia Design Award. And so they asked me to come and speak at one of their functions, and it was at their Newcastle office. So I thought, well, where can we use this technology in Newcastle? Here was this abandoned railway in suburbia, Toronto line. It's about 5 or 6 kilometres long, and the track is in good condition. I think the trains haven't run there for quite a while, but it looks like you can run a train there tomorrow. And yet there was no interest. No. In fact, the manager of the Engineers Australia Newcastle office worked for Lake Macquarie Council, and she was the environmental manager. No, we don't need this. We're going to keep the dirty diesel buses going. So, as I said, the technology's moved a long way with batteries and solar panels, inverters. We can now, in fact, so I sold Lithgow Railway Workshop 2 years ago so I could focus on these technologies. So I've got a consulting business, and my main customer now is Meta, who I did my due diligence on all of the companies that manufacture decarbonising equipment for railways, traction batteries, traction motors, etc. So Meta was by far the best, and with them, we've got a few projects on, even with Sydney Trains, we're doing work for them. But a few years ago, I started through Elderton Engineering, started doing work in Japan Rail as well. So there's a couple of branch lines over there I'm working on converting the diesel rail cars to battery electric with sustainable recharging. And for some of the freight companies over here, we've now got the technology to convert 3,000 horsepower diesel locomotives. So we remove 40 tonnes of diesel engine and drivetrain and fuel tanks, replace it with 40 tonnes of traction batteries of about 4.1 megawatt hours, which gives the locomotive a range of about 120 kilometres, which is ideal for some of the Western Sydney container terminals. They're running diesel locomotives to pull 300 containers to Port Botany and back. So this technology can now be applied there. So we're talking to some of the rail freight companies now. Yeah. Thank you.